I was sitting on my couch one time at home. It's like 9 o'clock at night. My phone rings. I don't recognize the number. And it's Ricky Williams calling.
No way.
And he wanted to talk about yoga mats. And
Well,
yoga.
that makes sense. He's into this stuff. No, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, his story was, I mean, if you want to hear his story, it was pretty incredible. It was just,
Oh, yeah.
And it really changed, everything that I'd ever heard about him. He wasn't really into the game. He really, wanted to smoke pot or whatever. And, his story was, he says, I was so injured, I couldn't lift my arms above my hip.
Yep.
And I just couldn't physically play anymore. So I went to India and spent, I don't remember whether he said 6 months or a year, studying yoga. And he came back and his career actually, I think his second half of his career was better than his first half. And he attributed that to yoga. But he was, at that point, he was coaching, I honestly can't remember whether it was high school or college football.
Was he back at UT? Was he back at UT again?
Yeah. I don't know if he was. I think it might have been, at that point, it might have been high school.
Might have been high school.
He wanted some mats for his team, so he could, his football team, they could do yoga while, part of their practice.
Welcome to Season 5 of Guys Talking Yoga. I'm your host, Derek Vanderwalker, and today Larry and I interview Dean Jerrehian, the founder and CEO of Jade Yoga. Now, for those of you who are not aware of much about yoga and yoga products and mats, you may not know Jade, but I would imagine if anyone's been doing yoga at all, they've seen a lot of these Jade mats and many studios and people carrying them with them as they go into class. Larry and I are big fans of the Jade Harmony mat. It's an absolute beauty. I've got one right here. I've got several of them. For a little less than $100, it is a great investment that'll last you for years if you take care of it. Anyhow, Dean shares the story of the founding of the company, starting with how his grandfather started the business in 1904, emigrating to the U.S. from Armenia, and gets into the rug business. What else, right? Dean's father takes over in the 60s, and pretty soon the company transitions out of rugs and starts really focusing into rug pads for nice, beautiful Afghan, Oriental, Armenian rugs that people are buying. There wasn't a lot of great rug pads to support those beautiful rugs. Well, sure enough, as the Western yoga scene is booming in the 90s, and a lot of these I wouldn't say fitness, I would say these athletic asana vinyasa practices in warm rooms like Bikram, people start slipping and sweating on these mats. And eventually somebody calls Jade, who focuses on rug pads, and inquires if they make yoga mats. And sure enough, it just happened to be Dean who was at the office that day fielding the inbound calls. And boom, the idea for the Harmony mat was born 25 years ago. Anyhow, this is a great conversation. We loved having Dean. He's a great guy. And again, Larry and I are big fans of Jade yoga mats, particularly the Harmony mat, but also the travel mat, the Voyager, which we both highly recommend. Anyhow, thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to us. Give us a good rating. Drop us a comment on the YouTube page. Find us on Instagram at GTY Podcast. And hope your practice is going great. Take care. I would love to have you share with our listeners kind of how Jade got started. I think it was your grandfather over 100 years ago, right?
Yeah, so my grandfather immigrated from Armenia in about 1904, so 120 years ago now. And I think he was 16 years old, and he, maybe had a rug under his arm. Maybe that's just the story. But if you look around at Oriental rug stores, they're often names that end in IAN, which is a sort of a telltale Armenian name. And, so you're an Armenian in the U.S. in the early 20th century, you're going to be drawn to the rug business. And so he started a rug business. And I kind of tempted to show you around my office. I have all this sort of memorabilia from the business, including a truck from 1910. It's like an open-sided truck that he drove around to pick up rugs to repair or deliver rugs that were sold. And then there's another picture I'm looking on the wall over there of a store he built in West Philadelphia that on the side of it says rugs of quality, and that was always sort of his goal, was to make it, to have the best rugs, the highest end rugs. And the business, the rug business, probably ran from about 1904 until the late 80s. My father stepped in and took it over. My grandfather died in the mid-'60s, so my father ran it for about another 20 years. And while he was running it, he said, there's not a good product to go underneath Oriental rugs to keep them from slipping. There were some products out there, but they weren't really designed for that. So he came up with this natural rubber rug pad that would go under the rugs and prevent them from slipping and give some cushion. So rugs will wear out faster if they don't have some cushion between them and the floor. So this was the idea, to give it some cushion, but also to keep it from slipping. So he developed this rug pad, and the rug pad business sort of overtook the retail Oriental rug business. So that business closed down, but the rug pad business thrived. Around 1998 or 2000, he wanted to retire, and I was at that point, I was a lawyer, and I was kind of getting tired with fighting with people all the time. Some lawyers do. I mean, I guess if you're tired of fighting with people, you shouldn't be a lawyer. But
what kind of law were you practicing?
I was an environmental lawyer. I was a litigator at a big, Philadelphia firm for a while. Then I went to the Environmental Protection Agency, and I was an environmental lawyer for a while. And then I went back and to the big firm and practiced estates law for a while, because I thought that would be a more mellow sort of field. But it turns out it wasn't for me. But while I was at EPA, I used to go out to lunch with my friends, and we would sit around and sort of, complain about work, as people do. And we said, wouldn't it be great to have a business with an eco-friendly product line? And, we must have talked about it 100 times and never really thought it would happen. But then as my father said he wanted to retire, and I kind of was ready to give something other than the law a chance, I said, all right, I'll do this rug pad business for a couple of years until I figure out what I want to do. And I got into the business, and I found out that people were using our rug pads as yoga mats. And I just was like, I knew what yoga was because I was alive in the 70s, but I didn't really know that it was a big thing. And I didn't initially, I admit, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. I sort of said, well, these people are buying 5 rolls of rug pad for yoga mats. That's great. I'm happy to have the sale. But then one day I get a call from somebody who's sort of really struck a chord with me and said, there's a problem with the yoga mats out there, that they're very slippery, they're toxic, they're not eco-friendly. Do you have any alternatives? And I don't know why he called a rug pad business. He called a rug pad business, and I just happened to answer the phone. If somebody else had answered the phone that day, they might have said, no, we don't have anything. And but I answered the phone, and I chatted with him, and in the back of my mind, I'm kind of like, are there that many people doing yoga? I don't know. And then I did a little research. I called my sister, who was practicing at that time, and she said, yeah, that's absolutely true. In fact, our teacher doesn't even want us to use mats if there's those. So that's sort of how we got into the mat business. That's that one phone call and a couple customers that have been using it before.
Wow.
So that was around 2000.
2000, yeah. And the idea was always like, to maintain what my grandfather said about the rugs of quality, was to make a quality product. And that was, the marching orders in the beginning, or the mission statement at the beginning was, make the best product possible. And then because I was at EPA and I always dreamed of having an environmentally friendly product, was to make it as eco-friendly as possible. And, we also tried to make in the U.S. as much as possible, because, we were more comfortable with sort of labor standards and working conditions in the U.S. And that's changed a little bit, and the conditions around the world have improved in many places. But we still will stick to the made in the U.S. whenever possible. But so, for instance, that Spanish mat, that fits within our desire to have a great product and eco-friendly.
Yep. So how long was the Harmony mat the only real mat you offered for like a good 10 years, or did you come out with other products pretty early?
We started with the Harmony, probably had that for like 3 or 4 years, and then we saw some demand for thicker mats and thinner mats and longer mats. And the one thing that I learned was to always sort of, after that first call, was always listen to the customers. I don't ever think that I'm right. I listen to them and I hear what people want, and then we will do a test and see if it makes sense. So at some point we had heard from some yogis that were, I'll refer to them as bigger yogis, somebody over, 250 pounds, if they're on a 5 millimeter mat, they might as well not be on a mat at all.
Yeah.
The press is right down to the floor. So we developed
You could just buy 2 mats, right, Dean?
that would be good, yeah.
Right.
But so we developed a thicker and a wider and a longer mat for the bigger yoga. And so that's sort of an example of, like, if somebody comes along and says, hey, we want to do this, we'll think about what's the best way to get them the solution they need. So I'd say, in answer to your question, we probably had the Harmony for in various iterations for 3 years, 4 years, and then we came out with these other mats. The Voyager mat, which you mentioned earlier, is much more recent. That's probably 5 years or 7 years old, and that was, again, a customer said, your travel mat, which is somewhere between the Voyager and the Harmony, is great for short trips, but I want to pack this in a backpack and carry it around for 2 months with my clothes. I need something,
right?
I need something even smaller. And they don't care about cushion, and they're just saying, I just want something. I want a clean space to work, and I want some grip. And we developed that, and that's actually the mat that I often use.
I think it's great because if you are traveling, you're in a hotel room and you got a thick, carpeting on the floor, it totally works. Also, if you go to another studio while you're traveling and they have mats that they can give you that are usually worn down or probably have been washed that often, you can at least throw the Voyager, skin right over that mat.
Right.
And then you're good to go. And then exactly, that's your mat, and how often it's cleaned, and you can always rely on that grip no matter what studio you go to.
People talk about putting the towel down in the hotel room. I never sort of got that move.
No,
first of all, towel's not long enough. It's like,
Larry, you got to stay at higher end hotels.
I guess that's the case.
The big fluffy towels,
But I don't want to get on that carpet. I'll tell you that.
No,
well, that's true too. It's true too.
Definitely not. Did you have to change much from the carpet pad to the Harmony? Was there a lot of reconfiguring of what you were doing? Do you remember, was it?
There was some. It wasn't. We had to, because it's going to be more in contact with your skin and your face. We had to really be careful about what was in it. The rug pad was already free of most toxics. In fact, it was compliant with federal regulations for rubber in contact with food, which I didn't know there was a federal regulation about. But the thought was that it is safe. But somebody, and this is again answering customers. The customer asked one time, "Do you have phthalates in your mat?" I was like, "No, we don't have phthalates in the mats because that goes in PVC mats to help make them soft." So I call up the lab and I say, "Hey, do we have phthalates in our mats?" And they go, "Yeah." I go, "Well, do we have to?" And they go, "No." So, that was one of the adjustments that we made. And that's been probably 20 years that, we haven't had phthalates in the mat. So there's things like that had to come out there. The rug pads were designed, if you have the Voyager mat, you'll see those white threads are on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way the rug pads always were, where the white threads were on the bottom. And we thought, just aesthetically, people might not want to see that when they roll their mat. So we covered the white threads with another layer of rubber. So that's a difference. Obviously, you put some color in it. We made it probably a little softer than the rug pads for a little more comfort. You don't want to be too soft because then you lose stability. But it's pretty close. I was pretty lucky because if we didn't have that product, we wouldn't be here right now.
So how many different products do you currently have? You've got obviously a collection of yoga mats. You've got yoga blocks. You've got belts. You've got cleaning products. What else am I leaving out here as far as different categories of products?
That's a good question.
Cotton and grass rugs there.
Yeah, we have some. We do have. That's right. We have cotton rugs that are from India. We have cotton rugs from recycled saris from Nepal, which is a great story. It's a group that somebody introduced me to them, and this woman who basically she was I think trafficked as a young woman in Nepal. She found her way out of it and sort of dedicated her life to helping other women get out of that situation by giving them skills so they could be economically independent. And so we have a small line of their products that are these recycled saris that are made into yoga rugs and yoga bags. That they're great products. I love them. I have placemats from them. I have table runners from them. I love what these people do, and I love the point of their organization too. We also have meditation products that I've been for years saying meditation is the next yoga. I don't think it's gotten there yet. I don't know why not, because you can do it anywhere with no equipment.
You might say meditation is the original yoga.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
meditation product, bolsters,
bags. You get kind of
bags.
All the accessories you need to support your mat and practice.
Right. And one of the things that I just want to talk about is that part of our original story was we wanted eco-friendly products and great performing products. And somebody called, again, a phone call from a customer. Well, what are you doing to give back? And I was like, well, I'm making eco-friendly products. Nobody else is doing that.
Isn't it enough?
Not enough. But she kept bugging me, and I was like, okay, what should we do? And that's when we decided to plant a tree with every mat sold. And I was like, is that good enough? She goes, well, that's good. But so that's carried through to all of our products now. So with every mat, we plant a tree. With every block, we preserve some rainforests. With every mat wash sold, we provide a bar of soap to somebody in the developing world. So we have all these give back programs, which I got in my Google alerts yesterday. Yoga Journal had a little piece on eco-friendly yoga mats, and they said two things about us that I really liked. One and this is, I think you sort of said this earlier. I'm going to read this. Jade is the brand that largely launched the sustainable yoga mat movement in 2000. So I like that. I feel good about that. That's
absolutely,
people have copied it because it's good, and I should feel flattered by that, right? And the other thing is, we plant a tree for every mat sold, totaling more than 2.5 million trees so far. And then this is what they say: a practice has inspired many other brands to follow. So again, I like it. I mean, a little bit they ripped us off. But on the other hand, more trees are better.
That's right. Do you what has been exciting about the 25 years since launching the Harmony, and what has been the challenge in kind of maintaining your leadership position in the category and being a role model for the industry?
Yeah. Oh boy. Let's start with the first question. I mean, it's all been I said I was a lawyer before. It's all been fun. I mean, it's just been the first before that little interim between the rug pad business, or between the lawyer business and the yoga business, was a rug pad business. And I would go to rug shows where there'd be exhibitors essentially yelling at each other, pushing each other, shoving each other. Don't take pictures of my rugs. Don't steal my designs, and lots of fighting. I said, I feel like I'm still a lawyer here. Then the first yoga show I go to, I see that I'm in a in a little booth, and the booth across from me, she's a little upset because the person in the booth next to her is encroaching on her space. And I'm kind of not involved, but I sort of say, well, I just go talk to her and see what comes of it. And next thing I know, they're hugging. And it's just that is not something I was ever used to. So
yep.
I've hugged more people in the last 25 years than I ever could have imagined. It's just such a, generally pleasant, happy group of people that I've
no waivers needed for the hug, right? This is just totally just a handshake deal, right?
Right. I feel like I can go almost anywhere in the world right now and find a yoga studio or a yoga teacher that uses our products. In fact, yep. We do these calendars every year. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they start out with sort of well-known. I think you can see a couple behind me on the board. Mm-hmm. We started with sort of well-known yoga teachers, and we eventually they all did ads for us. So we moved on to sort of more regular folk, but in cooler places. So we've taken pictures almost, except Antarctica, every continent by now, I'm sure. But some incredible photos around the world with people who were so we did a photo on the Great Wall where the model and the photographer had to travel 12 hours to get to the location, including 5 hours on foot to do that. And that was just that kind of stuff. To see the dedication of people that want to support us, because they believe in the product, is just so gratifying. And hardly even says the word, is enough.
Right.
But it's just fun. Like we had, I think, at some point, we're going to talk about men doing yoga, right? But one of the things I thought about is sort of the athletes that that have done
Absolutely
have used our mats and have done ads for us. And so I have I have next to me, I don't know if it'll look good on camera, but a Greg Louganis, multiple gold medal Olympic diver,
yep.
Big into yoga, did an ad for us. And I was sitting on my couch one time at home. It's like 9 o'clock at night. My phone rings. I don't recognize the number. And it's Ricky Williams calling.
No way.
And he wanted to talk about yoga mats. And
well, that makes sense. He's into this stuff. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, his story was, if you want to hear his story, it was pretty incredible. It was
oh, yeah.
And it really changed, everything that I'd ever heard about him, just, he wasn't really into the game. He really, he wanted to smoke pot or whatever. And, his story was, he says, I was so injured, I couldn't lift my arms above my hip.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't physically play anymore. So I went to India and spent, I don't remember whether he said 6 months or a year studying yoga. And he came back and his career actually, I think his second half of his career was better than his first half. And he attributed that to yoga. But he was, at that point, he was coaching, I honestly can't remember whether it was high school or college football.
Was he back at UT? Was he back at UT again?
Yeah. I don't know if he was. I think it might have been at that point. It might have been high school.
Might have been high school.
He wanted some mats for his team, so he could, his football team. They could do yoga while part of their practice.
I worked in the legal cannabis industry for a few years and was briefly working on Willie Nelson's recreational brand that was just launched in a few states, and I met Ricky at a couple of events. Super sweet guy and super thoughtful. It doesn't surprise me actually that he's super into yoga and meditation.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of knew that way back when. But yeah, no, he's a perfect example of a lot of these current and former athletes looking for ways of trying to take care of themselves beyond these super strong anti-inflammatory pills that they're taking and pain meds.
Right.
And I think, say what you want about cannabis, it's complicated. There's pros and there's cons, but learning how to move in your body and take care of yourself and regulate a little bit of your tension, your pain, your inflammation, and just moving your body around to move all those systems around. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
So it's interesting, Yoga Alliance does these studies every 8 years. They work with a couple of folks to help sponsor it, just to give a snapshot on the US and global yoga industry. And for those of you, Yoga Alliance is one of those, I wouldn't say it's a governing body, but it's a place where a lot of people go to get to register their certification or register their studio, to do teacher training. There's research, there's teachers are listed up there. Anyhow, every 8 years, they do a research study on the industry. And I think the first one was in 2008. The second one was in 2016. The third one just was in 2022. And then I think they published this, I think a year or so or 18 months later. So what was interesting was in the 2022 research that came out, it said about 30.5 million participants doing yoga in the US. And it sounds like a pretty big number, and it is a big number, but it's less than 5% growth from the 2016 number, which was around 37. And if you look back at 2008, there was about 140% growth from, call it 15 million people in 2008. So a huge leap from 08 to 16, and then it kind of flatlines a little bit. Now, I think COVID did a lot for bringing people into yoga, especially guys, because they didn't have to worry about going to the studio and looking awkward, trying to, muddle their way through a down dog or a triangle. And so who knows what the real number is. But I think the most striking thing to me, I think beyond just realizing the fact that the total number of participants actually hasn't grown that much, despite all the benefits, despite all the good things and the good stories, is that there's been almost no change when you look at gender as far as in the U.S. and or should I say sex? Anyhow, 70% of participants in female in 2016. That's pretty much the same number now. So 75% in 2016, 75% in 2028. So there still isn't many men coming into the industry. There are guys who do yoga, many guys who are super advanced in their practice. Some of them might look like the stereotypical yoga guy with tattoos and long hair and ponytails. And then there's other guys who are, very type A personalities, super, famous athletes or retired athletes, stockbrokers, guys on Wall Street and banking, lawyers doing this. We had one lawyer on the show a couple of years ago who said the 90-minute class that he took during his day was like a 90-minute vacation to get away from all the legal stuff that he was doing, from start to finish each day. So there's a lot of guys out there who do yoga, but there's a lot of guys, many, many more, who don't. And, I'm curious whether or not your personal perspective, you've seen any changes, and whether or not Jade is interested in trying to get more men into the category and help make their experience the best one possible by having a mat that's going to support them, support their scarred up knees, and support their slippery feet, and feel, ethically aligned with using a mat that's got sustainable goals and has been leading the industry and producing ethical mats and products.
Yeah, no, I'm a little surprised by that lack of growth, because I see, when I go to classes, I feel like there are more men than I saw 20 years ago. But I'm going to trust your statistics and say, okay, it's been flat. The other
it's just one source. It's just one source. I don't think these things get funded very well, so it is just one source.
The other thing that I look at, and we've had this not since the beginning, but this is another thing that we respond to customers, is we have a sort of a standard size yoga mat, which is 68 inches or 5 feet 8 inches, which is perfect for a short guy like me. But for the average man is probably 5'10", so it's not really necessarily right for them. So we developed a longer mat that's
72,
6 feet 2 inches.
Yep.
So it's 74 inches, so 6 feet 2 inches. That I've sort of looked at over the years to sort of track the sales of that and see how that's grown. And it actually has gone up, not a lot, but maybe 5% over the last couple of years. So we're selling about 5% more 74-inch mats, but it's still 25%. So it sort of aligns with the numbers you're saying. It's still not enough. When I drive home every night, I pass a yoga studio, and if I hit the right time at 5 of 6, there's a bunch of people walking in for their class. And I see what they're carrying in terms of mats, and I see that they're not very good. And, if I look at the schedule, I'll see it's a beginner class. And I understand that, is that, somebody's getting into yoga for the first time, they don't necessarily want to spend $100 on a mat.
Right.
They
might be their last class, right?
Yeah. So, and this is the thing, and I could talk for way more than an hour about why I think guys don't and why I think they should. Probably more about why I think they don't rather than why they should. But I think part of it is equipment. And if I'm out,
absolutely,
I've done triathlons over and off and on over the years. And the last sort of big one I did probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I'm in the age 55 to 60. They launch you launch in the water by age group. So I'm in the 55 to 65 age group, and the announcer is saying, that's my favorite group. It's the biggest group too, because there's all these guys that are trying to prove that they're not quite dead yet. It's a gigantic group compared to the 45 to 55. So it's 55 to 65 is gigantic. So she says, I love this group. You're so enthusiastic. You're out here, but I always have to ask this question: how many of you spent more on your bike wheels than on your first car? And half the hands go up. So we will spend money on stuff that we understand. Mm-hmm. But something like a yoga mat, you're not really sure you're going to get into it. Maybe you hesitate to spend $90. Maybe you spend $20. Then you have a mat that's not giving you a good experience. it's one of those cheap PVC mats you're going to slip on. It's going to make your practice harder.
It's going to be a terrible experience.
Yeah. So we developed a much lower cost rubber mat to sort of try to address that issue of the beginner who doesn't want to spend more than $50. $50 is still a lot to some people, but felt like that's a target that we can aim for and say, let's get more people starting with a good mat so they're more likely to stick with the practice.
What's the name of that entry model?
Is that the outlet?
Level 1.
It's the what?
Oh.
Level 1.
The level 1.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
So it's
I
like a
saw
level
the
1
outlet.
class.
I saw the outlet mat. I thought that was a great deal.
Yeah, that's kind of new for us. We haven't talked much about that to people, but yeah, we have some sort of the mats come in defective. Sometimes we donate them, but we actually have so many of them. I said, well, let's just try to sell them too. So I don't know what we're offering them at 50% off or even more than that. I can't remember what they are, but the idea is, so if somebody, if we're trying to get somebody new into yoga, the equipment is half the battle. Yep. The other half the battle is the stuff that I think you guys are talking about. Like, I can very clearly remember my first class and how intimidated I was by, and in fact, it was.
Was this before the Harmony mat or after the Harmony mat?
It was after, and one of our bigger customers, I went to see him in New York, and he's like, you're going to a class. I said, I don't want to go to a class. Because you're going to a class. And it was a big class. There were 100 plus people in the room. And he put me right front and center. And I'm like, for my first class, I don't want to be the center of attention. So, I get that totally. And then, from there, actually that same day, he said, okay, now we're going to a hot class. And then we went to a hot class where, it was like, and there's mirrors there. So that was, disturbing itself. But there's also like, I'm looking around, I'm seeing everybody knows what they're doing but me. And I kind of let that get to my head, which is, I think, a guy, and I don't feel confident. I see the person standing right in front of me. He's got everything down. He's got it all figured out. And I'm just like, I'm struggling. I can't do it right. I'm at the end of the class. I'm just laying in a pool of sweat. I can't even get up. And I finally make my way to the locker room, and I see that guy, and I say, look, I was really impressed with your practice. You really seem to know what's going on. How many years have you been doing this? Because I've been doing it for 3 weeks. It's like, and I don't know if you can tell this yet. I tend to ramble. You're in good company.
Yeah.
When I first learned to windsurf, I got up on the board, I fell down. I got up, I fell down. I got up, I fell down. And it was, somebody told me you need 12 hours of falling down before you get it. Yeah. And so I sort of feel it's the same way with yoga, for me anyways, that, the first, 3, 5, 10 classes, I'm not at all sure I belong there.
Yeah.
And then at some point you sort of realize everybody belongs.
And everyone's got their challenges. Everyone's got, I think this is a great time in people's, guys' life. If you're on the other side of 40 and you're coming into your 50s, it's so critical to start getting into better balance, learning how to, use the muscles in your foot to support yourself, just standing and balancing and walking. And I think yoga can really help turn on your awareness and your connection to those parts of your bodies that have pretty much kind of like gone in standby mode from sitting at a desk or commuting on a train or a car. And if you play a lot of golf, you got a lot of asymmetry in your body. Or if you play a lot of tennis, if you're Roger Federer's got a massive right arm. His left arm is like half the size. And yoga can kind of help rebalance some of that stuff. Yoga can help you, post-operation, if you've had knee or hip surgery and you've gotten the A-OK by your doctor. Yoga is great for helping stitch together those nerves and those tissues. And, over time, it's amazing what it does for you. But it takes some effort. It takes some humility and commitment and being open to the process and not expecting the results immediately.
Right.
And I think that you're right. But I do think also, the mat choice is a big part of that for people. Because it is also sort of, on one hand, it's kind of like your personal reflection thing. It's like, what kind of bike do you want to have? But at the same time, hopefully you are going to spend a large amount of time on this thing and a quality, right? A time of quality on this product as well. And so it's better. I mean, I tell new students all the time, first of all, do not go to Target and those places and buy a mat. I don't care what mat you ultimately end up with. Don't go buy one of those because you're going to regret it. And I'm going to watch you put your hands in all the wrong positions to support your down dog as you slip on your face. And, but take a few or several classes to think about it and then go pick one that works and come walk on my mat for 30 seconds and you'll pick this one for sure. Right. But that's part of it. I think that's part of your mat. Your stuff is part of your practice. We might not have the coolest stuff like a cyclist or somebody, but it's still part of your thing. So I think somehow enticing guys into their kit, their stuff, right, is part of the game for us anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, I know that, when if I go out on my bike, it's my bike. I don't want to get on somebody else's bike.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Same thing. I mean, the mat even more so because, the sweat factor.
Yeah.
So speaking of yoga mats, one thing that's for me is sort of a pet peeve is when you're in the studio or, you're in a class, you got a mat on the floor and people will walk over your mat. Definitely for guys who are new to yoga or anyone, if you're in a studio or class and there's a break, you step around somebody's mat and don't step on it. It's just, I find it it's like people who in your workplace will just touch your computer screen and leave like finger marks. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I think that is a big thing. In taking care of your mat, I mean, not just making sure that you're respecting other people's mat, but keeping your mat clean, brushing off dirt and debris. There was, you can take a little, like a lint roller, to get the lint off a sports coat or whatever you're wearing. And you roll that, you can get a little of little debris off the mat. You can use some of these, wipes, I guess. I mean, certain wipes probably aren't the best, but, you can wipe it down. And then if you really need to, I mean, Dean, I don't know if you guys approve of it, but I have put the Harmony mat in a side entry washing machine, not the top loader.
You don't want the agitator bar.
But you put it in the side loader and I'll turn it on just hot. Like I assume there's already enough residual soap in the machine's pipes or whatever. So I don't put any soap, but I'll run it on hot. And I think that cleans the mat really well. It takes a little time to kind of, rinse out and dry off. It does, being open cell, it does absorb some water. But I just think you got to take care of the mat. I don't know, Dean, do you have any tips for how to keep your Harmony mat clean or any of the Jade mats?
I mean, that same first yoga conference that I went to was in Boston, probably, 2002, where I saw the people hugging for the first time. Somebody came to me and said, "Oh, here's how you want to take care of your mat." And it's always stuck with me. Is rather than just roll it up from the floor, fold it in half and then roll it. So your clean half is only touching your top half is only touching your top half. So that's one step. And so, the floors, I mean, most studios, they're going to keep their floors clean. They're going to sweep them. People aren't walking around with shoes on. So it's probably not going to pick up any grip. But if there's anything down there and you roll up a mat with the bottom side's touching the floor, you roll it up, that grit's going to transfer to the top side. So that's sort of step one, is you probably want to fold it before you roll it. So fold it the long way and then roll it up. The washing machine, we do recommend that sort of for an occasional deep clean.
You're right.
It's, on a daily basis, wipe with a damp cloth. We make a mat cleaner that's totally plant-based, that is designed to work with natural rubber. Natural rubber is sensitive to certain things. So if you had a high dose of essential oil, it'll start eating away at the rubber. Some other soaps with a pH that's not sort of close enough to neutral, that will also eat away at the rubber. So we have a mat wash we recommend. Otherwise we say plain water, but an occasional deep clean, and maybe it's every 6 months or every year, sort of depending on how you're using it and how you're using, how much you're sweating. Yeah, front loading washing machine, hot water or warm water, and then you lay it flat to dry. You don't ever put natural rubber in the sun. It just dries right out. we've done some yoga events outside, and I'm constantly moving the mats around so they're in the shade, because the sun in a matter of hours will break down natural rubber.
Yep. What, by the way, the difference between an open cell mat and a closed cell mat, and is there pros and cons?
Well, I mean, I think that the open cell, there's pros and cons. I mean, the open cell, I think, grips better.
It's the Harmony, right? All of Jade's products.
Yeah, and the closed cell you'll give up some grip, but you won't have. So, I mean, when you're sweating on an open cell mat, some of that sweat will enter into the mat. If you're on a closed cell mat, it really won't enter into the mat. It'll stay to the surface, which in a way is good because you don't have to worry about cleaning the inner cells of the mat. But in a way, it's bad because you have all that liquid on the surface now that's going to make it more slippery. So, I mean, those are the main differences.
Yep.
But we're not interested in the closed cell. I mean, that's just not a product that we're going.
So, Dean, how's your practice coming, buddy?
Well, I have well, here's my standard answer. I don't go as much as I should. I don't go as much as I'd like to, but I do about 10 or 15 minutes every morning because I've had 2 back surgeries, and I do 10 or 15 minutes of sort of really gentle, basic stuff, in the morning, every morning, and I don't have to have back surgery. I don't have to have a third back surgery. So that's sort of where we are right now. I mean, I try, but it's just so hard to find the time, and that's something that I feel bad about being on this podcast and saying, more people should go to yoga when I'm not going to these classes myself as much as I'd like to.
I have to say, though, that I don't worry about what you just said there, because I think the golden nugget of what you did just say, and I hope everyone really heard it, is that you have 10 or 15 minutes non-negotiable every morning that you do to take care of yourself, but also to protect against that third back surgery. And I think for right there, like a lot of guys our age range and older, this doesn't have to be 60, 90 minutes of a hot class that you drive 20 minutes to. And
right.
It's like 10 or 15 minutes taking care of yourself. You're doing basic poses. This is not difficult, and you stick to it. And I think that's the key. That's the consistent key to it. So yes, I'm sure you would love to get out there on the mat and have a longer, more profound class or whatever, but you're doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. I was thinking about the whole idea of a home practice the other day and what you should do. And I kind of came to this idea of like, a lot of people don't think about what they don't need to do. Right? There's the other side of like, what do I actually need?
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, we're sort of trained to think more is better.
Yeah.
Most things, but
right.
Something is better than nothing.
So. That's right.
That 10, 15 minute practice can also let you just zero in on that one thing that's the most supportive for you for that day. And that might be just getting your spine moving around, getting your pelvis warmed up. So you're more aware of your back, throughout the day. You're not coming in cold on whatever you're doing first thing in the morning, typically after your yoga. So I just think it's like, it was like, who was it? Judith Lassiter is one of the super well-known yogi in the 70s. I think she started Yoga Journal, and she was interviewed. What's that?
Yoga Works, I think, right?
I think that was somebody else. I think she started Yoga Journal, right? That was, I'm blanking on the Maddie, right?
Yeah.
So Judith Lassiter was being interviewed like, it was 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And so the interviewer goes, well, how often should you do yoga? And Judith's response was like, only on the days you want to feel good. And I think it's true. I think it's easy to skip some of these things. It's easy to skip the gym. It's easy to skip the run. It's easy to skip getting to the pool. Because all the commitment you have to do. And it's not that hard to skip yoga, but it's pretty easy to just commit to 10, 15 minutes, especially if you're just rolling it out in your living room or your office or your man cave or your space in your bedroom
or your hotel room.
It's a no-brainer. What's that?
Or the hotel room.
Right.
Or the hotel after you've disinfected and, lit a flame on the floor to kill all the stuff down there. But I think there's really no excuse to trying to make some kind of commitment. And if you miss a day, so be it. You took a day off or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it is. I mean, that those 10 or 15 minutes are important. They're part of my, part of my morning ritual, which also includes a 45-minute walk in the woods. That between those two things.
I mean, that's a whole yoga practice.
That's a total yoga practice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you after all this time and having this family history, what are you most proud of?
Oh boy. I mean, it really is. I mean, it probably is the trees. It's probably, planting 2.5 million trees.
Where do those get planted, by the way?
They're mostly in India. They have some presence in Africa, but most of them are going up in India. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this organization that we work with is it's the classic kind of teach a person to fish. Mm-hmm. That they go into these communities and they train the people how to plant trees and why the trees are important and why they maintain them. And it may be for shade, it may be agriculture, it may be fuel, it may be erosion control. They'll go into each individual location and determine what's the right, or work with the village to determine what's the right, tree mix for them. Mm. So, not just the 2.5 million trees that we planted, but the people that have emulated it and done it since then. And I remember that I have a friend he's actually a pediatrician, and he cares for newborn babies. He plants a tree with every newborn baby.
That's cool.
He sees, and he's strictly says, "Yeah, I got that from you," and that's
very cool.
I mean, it's not as many babies as mats, but it's still cool. But then I saw a mat company do it, and I was like, they just copy us. I can't stand it. And then I was like, that's just so great. We planted more trees now, and right. So I think that kind of the idea, and I think that the original founder of Whole Foods called it conscious capitalism, and that a business can do more than just make money. And I think that's something that that I like to talk about all the time. In fact, I'm surprised I haven't brought it up yet. But we're fortunate enough to be able to sell mats to people, and because of that, we can give back by planting trees. Now we also do a pink mat that we donate a portion of the sales to breast cancer. I had a friend who she had ovarian cancer, and she called me and said, "Will you do a teal mat for ovarian cancer?" And I said, "No, that color's not right. It's never going to sell. It doesn't fit our vibe." She just kept calling me. Finally, I just said, "Okay, I'll do it. Stop calling me." And so now we have a teal mat that has raised, $50,000 for ovarian cancer causes. We have a saffron mat. We raise money for autism causes with that. It's all those things that if we weren't doing this, wouldn't have happened. And that's the stuff that I love. I feel good about at the end of the day. It's great to have a great product. It's great to see. New York Times called us the best mat of 2024. That's awesome. I love that. And a lot of people I hadn't talked to in years called me up and said, "Congratulations on that." And that's great. I love it. But I really love the 2.5 million trees.
And I just got to say,
cool.
And what you don't know is probably the impact that you've made on so many people who have gotten into yoga and stay with yoga because they love the mats. They love their experience in their class with their mats. You just don't know how many different lives you've changed, not only that person's life, but also the loved ones around that person, because yoga helped them, become a better person or get out of their pain or challenges. And it's just, I think it's awesome. I mean, and anyhow, Dean, Larry and I are just so psyched to have you on and appreciate you making time to share a little more background on Jade, a little bit more about Jade itself and your great products. And, our mission is to help get more guys into yoga. And we are absolute big believers that they're going to have a far better first-class experience, far less humbling on a Jade mat, specifically the Harmony. I think that's plenty of mat for you guys, unless you need the Fusion. But, we just think you got great products and we love it. And we really are just grateful for your time.
Yeah, well, no, I appreciate it. This is fun. And, I'm going to go to yoga now.